Hello everyone, my name is Kacper and I'm a mobile technology leader at DXT Technology. Thank you for coming to this talk. This talk is about using Flutter in enterprise applications and how to convince clients to use it. And this talk is more for business side rather than developers, so sorry for that. Before I go to this topic, I would like to share some information why I choose this topic to present it for today. DXT Technology is the world's leading independent end-to-end IT services and solution company. And as Polish branch of DXT Technology, we are responsible for developing mobile financial applications for major financial institutions in Poland and in the world. One of our greatest apps, which I'm responsible for as a technology leader in our development team, is ICO. Which we are developing for the biggest bank in Poland. It's called PKO BP. ICO is used over 4 million users in Poland, and it won twice in a row award for being the best financial application awarded by Retail Bank International. Of course, the best in the world. Secondly, we developed application, also the first in the world, applications for children under 13 years old. Because the client wants to teach young children how to use financial services, like transfers, like make savings, and so on. And lastly, in 2019, we started development of application for and a whole payment new system for Ministry in Finance in United Arab Emirates. This system is based on concept of BLIK, which is Polish mobile system based on 6-digit code. And we can pay BLIK in points of sale on the internet, or we can withdraw money from automatic teller machine. We developed this system in 2013. So, we are close to market for developing mobile applications for nearly 10 years. But all of our applications were native ones. We never use solutions like React Native, Xamarin, PhoneGap, because our clients want to have mobile apps as native as it could be. So, why Flutter? Why one of the biggest companies in the world are interested in Flutter? Somebody will guess? Anyone? No. For money. Recently, we prepare proof of concept application written in Flutter for our long-time client to convince him to pick Flutter as the next generation mobile framework. And not only mobile, but many applications like web and so on. And this presentation is the story of how to approach to do that. And this is a hint for you how to attract corporate clients, like financial ones, for whom mobile applications are the most important channel to contact you with their clients. So, what's the good side from our perspective in Flutter? First of all, we make a research. What are Flutter advantages? And we divided them into 4 groups. First group is time. Flutter applications have a high level of code share between mobile applications. In our proof of concept application, we achieve over 90% of code share between application in iOS and Android. Of course, this level of code share can be different in other projects because it depends of how many operations we should do on bare metal on the device. For example, making payments with host card emulation. And for these solutions, we need to add custom frameworks and SDKs. Next is mild learning curve for developers to step in Flutter development. On board, we have an iOS developer, an iOS specialist, with over 8 years of experience, and in a few days he learned how to write Flutter applications for the sake of this proof of concept. One client have his own development team, because in our application it is that the client on his behalf has developer supporting developers. So there is no risk for him to start writing applications in Flutter, because they can easily be moved to be a Flutter dev, not only to write native applications. The third point is hot reload, the feature we loved during our proof of concept journey. One of our developed application is a monolith one, and fresh compilation, like clean in the IDE and build one, takes nearly 20 minutes. And when developer changed something and he should retest it, and he spends so much time rather than waiting, rather than doing stuff. One day, we make a measurement how much time we are wasting for compilation time. And for our whole development team, we waste every day nearly 8 hours of our precious time. So for this policy is something that we can't bear to waste so much time every day. And the fourth point in this section, time, is custom and ready-made widgets. The policy of Flutter that everything is a widget is a cool one. But more amazing thing is how widgets are ready out of the box. This is very handy. This is very handy and really speeds up of development. Because we can easily customize these widgets to adapt to a design system which the client has in his organization. And to sum up all of these features of Flutter, it results better time to market. So the client can have his applications faster in app stores. Second group is advantage in tests. In all of our projects, we have manual testers, which are doing a great job of testing the applications. On stage, we have Maciek, but I'm looking, here is Maciek, and he is one of the leading our testers. And of course, in our team, we use unit tests, auto tests, but Flutter can bring tests another level for us. One of this reason is that there is one code base between applications. This is very important and in perspective of manual testers, because when bug will be found in one application on one platform, the same bug will be replicated in the another one. So when we have one code base, we fix them, and the bug is fixed on the whole applications. The result is that less effort will be made to test applications and less effort to fix bugs. Secondly, the code isn't device specific. For example, with many developers and testers in a team, there is always not enough devices to test. With Flutter applications, tester can run application on their laptops as a desktop application, and there will be the same bugs on a mobile one. What is more, there is very important because will be low level of devices specific bugs. What is more, we unfortunately have a great experience of bugs which occurs in Chinese devices like Xiaomi ones. For example, there are UI glitches because of Themi MIUI, which on these devices, and which are really pain in the ass to fix them by our maintenance team. In Flutter, there is another way, that because the UI is rendered on the screen, so there will be no device-specific bugs for that. So with these props, smaller effort will be given to test application and maintain them on the production. And the third group of advantages is compatibility. Flutter can run a single application or as part of existing one. This is a great feature because client can choose to build application on a native one, and we can add Flutter views later in the year. This can be a great for writing, for example, forms or application rather than using websites embedded in web views, which performance and user experience is very poor. Secondly, with Flutter apps, we can run them in different environments, like mobile, desktop, tablets, in the web, or especially in watches, because there is one and the same code base. This is very important for clients that the code can be run in different environments, and this really can the client don't have to have a different separate developer teams, for example, for the web and for the mobile. And lastly, Flutter is great in accessibility. Enterprise clients, like banks, pay extra attention to this point. Many customers are using applications. Like in ICO, there are over 4 million people. And there are many people with different disabilities. Financial institutions pay attention and make researches how people use the application, how they use the device, how is a user experience on these applications for these people with disabilities. And for example, in our applications, we move a button for login on the bottom of the screen. And about them, there were 4 or 5 buttons with shortcuts. And when there is a blind client and he uses VoiceOver, so he should swipe many times to reach the button that he wanted to log in. So, so this is a very, I would stress, this is a very important thing that Flutter supports, is accessibility. And the last group is modularity. As I said, one of our applications is a monolith one, and we spent many time in developing them and waiting and testing and waiting and so on. And in new applications, like for the Ministry of Finance, we use approach in modularity because this is less time-consuming for later development. What is more, in complex mobile applications with 100,000 lines of codes, there are many vendors which were developed the same applications. Like in our application, that there are 2 or 3 other vendors than us that develop this application. So, in a modular approach, every vendor, for example, is responsible for one module or set of modules, so there will be no merge conflicts and collisions with the code. And what is more, Flutter has built-in modularity by using PubSpec packages. This approach can be used to set up our own repository for modules. This can be great when we develop multiple applications and these modules can be reused. For example, like we are developing ICO, so the modules, for example, for host card emulation payments, we can use on the junior applications. And after showing client these advantages, it's good to show him who is nowadays using the Flutter in a production applications. There are many examples like eBay, Alibaba, Google, or Nubank. My favorite is BMW, and the explanation is great. They say, BMW is the ultimate driving machine, and Flutter is ultimate front-end development machine. How nice of them. And what do you think? What the client will say after hearing all of this? Will somebody guess? What will be the reaction? Exactly. Blah. It's marketing crap. It was in our case that we show the same slides for the client, and the client was very stressed and said, no, I don't want that. Tell me what the real problems in Flutter. So, let me be an advocatus diaboli and challenge Flutter framework, follow some drawbacks, which are very important for perspective of corporate clients. First of all, there is security risks. There are many crypto algorithms implemented like AES for symmetric cryptography, RSA for asymmetric one, and HMAC for signing messages sent to the backend, or even elliptic curve digital signature. But this list is very narrow. There is lack, for example, 3DS, IDEA, Lucifer, Bluefish, and for example, for stream ciphers is lack of Bloom SHAP. And what is worse of this narrow list is that these algorithms are implemented in fork of Pentecostal library, which is very popular, and it's called pointycastle. But as you can read, the only maintainer of this library is no longer able to actively maintain this library. If anyone would be willing to take over maintainership, I would be glad to discuss that. Great. So we are using in a financial application library that is no longer developed. So what about bugs? And this is a real problem. And as we know, it's not recommended to write by ourselves crypto algorithm. And I remember this after many years when I was in study of basic system security, and my lecturer told me that to never implement a crypto algorithm by my own because of the risk of failure. And what is a solution for that? And sometimes clients want to implement some custom security. For example, in our applications, we use custom TLS sessions, for example, a two-way SSL, and certificate pinning to the list of certificates in a tree. And there will be a risk and for implementing this policy in Dart, because many of these solutions can be developed in Dart. The only solutions to implement this policy is that to implement own modules written in C++, which can use OpenSSL and curl, and it handle all of the stack of communication with the backend, and there will be an interop with Flutter to this C++ module. We call this solution because we developed it many years ago, about 8 years ago and so on, and we called it a Security DXC mobile framework because this module written in C++ is very portable, and it implements all of the security risks, like example custom way SSL, message signing, certificate pinning, and any other security special things. But there will be another story with code obfuscation. Dart is obfuscated, but only Dart. But with interop with native code written in C++, developer should implement his own obfuscation mechanism. But why security is so important? And we have to know that security is no feature, it has to be maintained well. Corporate clients pay enormous attention to how application is secured. They have their own departments of security, and they control everything what is developed in Modby applications. And yes, we have to have approved every new feature by them when we are starting developing in applications. And of course, there are frequent security audits, and the application can be a point of failure, and the client's data can be leaked. And the second drawback as we know, Flutter is a cross-platform solution. And there is a small, unfortunately, a small footprint on application size. For Flutter, fortunately, it's only about 4 megabytes. But with our clients, we fight for every megabyte of the application size, and we try to keep application as thin as possible. We developed special tools to reduce size, for example, for images, which we are adding to the applications to fulfill this policy. So adding weight to the application is a bad thing for client perspective, but 4 megabytes it's not too bad. So when we told client that it's only that, they, okay, we will stand that. What is more, with Flutter, we can lose platform-specific look and feel of the application. This is important for iOS users, for example, which are accustomed in specific behavior in the iOS system. Of course, the Flutter can achieve iOS look by Cupertino-style widgets. But of course, this is a separate implementation rather than material design. What is more, in another version of system, for example, iOS 13, they can change layouts, for example, time picker. And in our Flutter applications, the time picker will be the older one, because we are rendering components on the screen rather than using native ones. This drawback is very important on Apple ecosystem because, as always, Apple is not recommending developing applications using not native components. And there is always a risk that Apple can someday bring policy to ban cross-platform applications, and like they are planning to ban web views-based applications in near future. Next drawback is a performance one. But to be precise, not Flutter is guilty for that, but how developer architect application when unnecessary widgets are refreshed on the state and when they changed, there is no need to. Developer should have a great knowledge how to architect complex applications and what state management to use. For example, like provider, block, MVVM, and so on, because in Flutter environment there are many of them. And of course, to be strict, Flutter can render screens in 120 Hz and have beautiful animations, which is advantage in favor of the native ones. For client perspective, when we said the Flutter is cross-platform solution, client thought that he don't need developers to need a native no knowledge of writing native applications. Unfortunately, it's not true, because sometimes it's necessary to write some custom plugins. For example, for mobile payments with a custom library of host card emulation. Or when we need to write system widgets that we'd like to present account balance in the system. What is more, writing custom plugins can be a really pain in the ass, because when the application will run in different environments, like mobile, web, desktop, the developer should take it into account, because in time perspective, this is a point that should be rewritten. Next drawback is that Flutter is new. For corporate clients, it's too new. It's production ready only over 1 year, and it's the first version of development. Clients are afraid of that, and they are afraid what will bring version 2.0. Will be the same breaking changes like in young years of Swift, when there was version 1.0, and then after a year later Apple introduced Swift 2.0, and many methods have to be rewritten in code. When I talked with the client in November last year, they asked me this question. So what Google will do? And I said them, wait till December. There will be, in December 2019, because there will be a Flutter conference, and probably Google will show us version 2.0. So, December came, and Google show only 1.12. So, Google, we really need version 2.0 to calm down clients that the Flutter is really stable and there will be no as big changes in next versions. And lastly, what will Google do with Flutter? And in my humble opinion, this point is the biggest one of what I presented. And the Flutter will be developed in 5 years period. Here we have a screenshot from a site killed by Google. There are many examples how and which technologies Google killed, and I don't know if it is visible, but here are all, and is 200. So what is a guarantee that Google don't want to kill Flutter? And really, enterprises are afraid of this killing policy of Google. Enterprise mobile applications cost millions of dollars. And when a company take it into account to choose Flutter, a next-gen Flutter framework for mobile applications, they should know how will be what is the lineup for next years, because in long time period they have to put the money on the table. So, what to do? I turned to Advocatus Diaboli on Flutter conference, show many drawbacks, so how to convince client to choose Flutter and not to hesitate. For us, it was to make a show. As I said, we done a proof of concept application. It was a junior one, and we implemented features like login, communication stack with a backend, security. We implemented transfers, money boxes. We prepare applications for many different devices like iOS, Android, many different web browsers like Safari, Firefox, Chrome, and so on. We also prepare application for desktop like macOS. And lastly, we show application designed for watchOS. And really, this was a game changer. First of all, at the beginning of the meeting, client said, "No, I don't want Flutter. I want to go to the native one of developing applications. You don't convince me to use Flutter." So he was reacted, as I said, this is marketing bullshit. When we talked about drawbacks, he was more convinced. But when we show applications, and really, he saw firstly for mobile, next for browser, and when he saw how it performs, that he can't said which is native and which is Flutter, he saw many animations, and this is a really game changer for the clients. And the second, what I would like to add, that at the end of the meeting, when clients saw these applications, how they run, how they perform, how they look, and so on, and at the end they said, maybe this topic we'll implement in Flutter, and maybe that, maybe selling cars, and so on. So the client have to feel the application, how they work. And the second point is how much client can save time and money on Flutter projects rather than in native approach or different cross-platform solutions. And you must remember that at the end of the day, time, money and quality means make business. Thank you very much. Any questions?
I need to strongly object to what you said, that Flutter doesn't really impact the amount of testing and the amount of bugs. Because in every our Flutter app that wasn't proof of concept, but normal app for our clients, we noticed not only UI glitches, but also differences in functionalities. So the bugs connected to functionalities, depending on the platform. Not only on a platform, but also on a device. And later on, after we started those projects, we needed to implement labels in our Jira, allowing us to recognize Android and iOS bugs. And majority of them were divided. So there were few of them that were actually cross-platform, which resulted in another problem that where, for example, an iOS bug occurred and we needed to retest it. We needed to retest this bug on both platforms, because since we have one code base and we fix iOS connected bug, we might have influenced the Android also. So we needed to put much larger work impact on our testing of Flutter projects.
Okay, so the test should be on the drawbacks rather than advantages.
In my opinion, yes. In my opinion, yes. That's really, we noticed that developers work really faster, but testers needed to put higher impact and higher workforce on testing rather than on native platforms.
And in what period of time it was? It was recently or a year ago?
We started our first Flutter project in February last year, and we released it. We released this project now, and all those bugs resulted in what is already a surprise for us, in different release for iOS and Android. So even though it is a fully Flutter project, the iOS was released first because Android was still buggy, and we needed to wait 2 sprints to fix all of them.
And they are fixed by you, or they were fixed by Google in a framework?
No, not by us.
Okay.
So it wasn't really a framework. Those were bugs connected to platform as Android.
When we are doing this proof of concept application, we have also bugs, but they were provided by Google. When we check out the newest sources of Flutter and recompile them, the bug was missing. Okay,
so yeah, no, that was really our fault. So that was kind of, yes.
Nice to hear that every developer has.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here. At the end.
You introduced the pointycastle package, and gladly I found it because I'm working with a customer on the end-to-end encryption like Signal, and I'm just working on the package. I mean, it's just math, but I also built pointycastle in some cases for generating private and public keys. Before I go further, I mean, I can just port the code. I ported a lot of code from the Java implementation of Signal. But would you recommend to use pointycastle further or port the code from Java? What's your recommendation? Because I'm afraid some bad things will happen.
I don't like to use libraries that are not maintained anymore. So I would like to recommend that you will use Pentecostal and implement interop with Java code.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for the talk. I would like to add some more information about the bugs, because when we are talking about cross-platform solutions, and mainly about cross-platform, the platform-related bugs will be with us every time. But so it's better to compare with other cross-platform technologies. So because definitely the cross-platform aim is to save money and time.
Yes, and the client perspective is also when they hear something is cross-platform and they think, yes, it will cost less money, so it will be the better choice. But we have fortunate that our clients always wanted to a native ones. So as I said, these clients have a great. They don't want Flutter as a cross-platform solution because they wanted native. But yes, we know that there are some bugs, as I said, in a framework, and they can be not maintained by us, but we have to wait until, for example, Google fixed them. So
I think many of customers afraid of cross-platform, because previous cross-platform solutions that we can remember, like React Native or Native Script or so on, was not stable enough, not performant enough. So the customers, from their from business perspective, they know that cross-platform is not very good, and the native app is the best solution. And now Flutter not only have to deal with platform-specific bugs. Flutter is dealing with the mindset. So we need to help to change the mindset of customers to believe in Flutter.
Okay.
Okay, my question is related again with this library, pointycastle. So basically you said don't use it, right? Because it's not maintained and this is the right call. I also think like that, but are you planning actually to release your solution? Like this interop library with all those IIS, SHA and all that encryption?
Yes,
because
if you come to us with a large amount of money, yes, we can separate this and share the code.
Because those standards are those encryption standards are already existing from a lot of time, and if every developer or every company have to write it from scratch, isn't that?
Yes, it's very risky to write it from the scratch, as you said. But now we, unfortunately, have no plans to release it. This is something we developed for many years, and this is the core of many applications in Poland market. And so we don't think about losing control of this. Sorry. But you can be a developer in the DXC, so you can see it.
Come to our stand.
Of course.
I have two fast questions. First, what are the chances, like percentage, of Flutter being dropped by Google?
Huh. It's hard to say.
Okay, the second one, how much bad code the Flutter contains? So if the second version appears, how much different it could be?
This is the risk that we don't know how to address that. And we are also still waiting to the version 2.0 because we don't know how this will be different for this actual version. And we also developed many applications in Swift in 2015. And yes, we said, oh, Swift is great, we will write applications in Swift. But it came year 2016 and Swift 2.0 released, and we have to rewrite nearly our application because there were breaking changes. So this is a very big afraid of our perspective that there will be breaking changes too in Flutter.
If you had a startup, would you go into Flutter?
Yes. Yes, I'm working for my startup and I'm using Flutter.
So you mentioned that you couldn't convince your clients with just a PowerPoint and the selling points, and the only option was to like spend a month and do a proof of concept. What if this is not an option and the client won't buy it like 1 month of time?
Our client is very specific. Maybe you can go to your client and say, here you are, we have a great presentation. With our client, we are working for nearly 8 years. We know each other, they trust for us. And even though when they see a keynote presentation, they said, it's too little knowledge. So I think you really should have a proof of concept application to show the client, even a smaller one, with, for example, login and a dashboard after login. But the client should see this technology in real life.
Send him to the conference. It's better.
Yes. There is another question.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. My question is about the app that you were doing. Was it like being developed gradually? It was rewritten from the native ones, or was it done from scratch? And if it was like rewritten gradually, do you have some drawbacks based on your experience with that?
Yes, the junior application, which is the core of this work of proof of concept, was released in 2015, and of course it was written in Objective-C and Java. And the client wanted to see exactly one-to-one application, that the application behaved the same look and so on, that they can compare if there are any drawbacks in UI. So Michael, I don't know is here or not, rewrite some features for this application that is on production ready, and the client saw old application on one device, the second on the written in Flutter on the other, and they behave the same. So they said, okay, so you can you fulfill our request. We can see that there are no limitations in Flutter, and yes, we can develop applications with Flutter. And what about drawbacks? Drawback was that sometimes when Google released Flutter framework and we check out, we recompile application, and there were crashes. I think this is the main drawback, that the Flutter is maintained at the same time, and when we use it every day, sometimes there can be this unpleasant. Okay, thank you very much for coming.